You ever look in the mirror and feel like the person staring back isn't who you were meant to be? You know you've got more in you. More power, more discipline, more potential, but somewhere along the way, life buried it under habits, fear, and excuses. Let me tell you something, in just 7 days, you can become unrecognizable. Not because the world changes, but because you do. See, people think transformation takes years. It doesn't. It takes a decision. One radical week of total commitment can shift your body, your mindset, your energy, your identity. You don't need another month of waiting or another year of wishing. You need 7 days of obsession. 7 days where you demand more from yourself than you ever have before. Because the truth is, you're not waiting on motivation, you're waiting on a moment. And that moment is now. You change your life until you decide who you're done being. That's where it all begins. Most people try to improve without ever ending the old version of themselves. They keep carrying the same stories, the same beliefs, the same identity that built the life they're trying to escape. You can't step into a new chapter if you refuse to close the last one. There comes a moment where you look at yourself and say, enough, I'm done living at this level. That's the moment everything starts to shift. Because the truth is, transformation doesn't begin with adding more. It begins with subtraction. It's the release of who you're not, the shedding of the layers that have kept you playing small. Every behavior, every decision, every pattern in your life is linked to the identity you hold. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles, you'll unconsciously create struggle. If you believe you're not consistent, you'll find a way to sabotage consistency. Your mind fights to stay congruent with who you think you are, even if that identity is destroying you. So if you want to become unrecognizable in a week, you've got to break that pattern right now. You've got to decide with absolute certainty that the person who tolerated procrastination, laziness, or fear no longer exists. When I say decide, I don't mean wish. I mean decide. The Latin root of the word decision means to cut off, to cut away from every other possibility. That's what this week is about, cutting off the option of being the old you. You draw a line in the sand and say, that's it. That's the last day I make excuses. That's the last day I act like I'm not enough. That's the last day I settle. Because if you don't make that kind of decision, life will keep handing you the same results wrapped in new disguises. You don't have to wait until you feel ready to decide. Readiness is a lie your mind tells you to protect what's familiar. The moment you make the decision, your energy changes. You feel it in your body. It's like flipping a switch from survival to creation. You stop reacting to life and start designing it. The problem is, most people are addicted to their old emotions. They get a sense of comfort from stress, from chaos, from self-doubt. It feels normal. So when they try to change, their mind says, hey, this isn't who we are. Let's go back to what we know. But that's when you push harder. That's when you breathe through the resistance and remind yourself, that identity is gone. I'm not that person anymore. You've got to speak it into existence with conviction. Look in the mirror and tell yourself who you're done being. Say it out loud. Don't whisper it. Declare it. Because when you speak it, your nervous system listens. You condition your mind to believe it. You start sending a signal to your brain that this is the new standard. And the moment you start believing it, your behavior follows. You start making decisions that match your new identity. You start taking actions that reinforce it. Maybe the old version of you hit snooze every morning. Maybe that version scrolled through social media before even taking a breath of purpose. Maybe that version said, I'll start tomorrow. But the new you, the one you're stepping into this week, operates on a different frequency. You wake up with intention. You move your body. You feed your mind. You lead your emotions instead of letting them lead you. You stop negotiating with your excuses. You see, the reason most people never change isn't because they lack discipline or resources. It's because they never make a clean emotional break from the old identity. They're trying to drag the past into their future. But to become unrecognizable, you must burn the bridge. Leave no way back. You can't dip your toes in change. You've got to dive in and drown the version of you that's been holding you back. And here's the beauty of it. Once you truly decide, momentum takes over. You don't have to force motivation every day because you've shifted from trying to becoming. The old you is trapped in hesitation. The new you lives in action. And action, repeated over time, rewires your belief about who you are. That's how transformation sticks. It becomes your new truth. So as you move through this week, I want you to start with that one powerful decision. Who are you done being? Write it down. Feel it. Visualize it. Let the energy of that decision pulse through every part of you. And the moment you feel that pull to go back to the old you, remember that person no longer exists. Because becoming unrecognizable isn't about changing a few habits. It's about rewriting your identity. And it all starts the second you decide that you is no longer who you are. Most people don't fail because they lack goals. They fail because their standards are too low. They tell themselves they want more out of life, but they tolerate less every single day. They say they want energy, but they tolerate exhaustion. They say they want success, but they tolerate distraction. They say they want love, but they tolerate disrespect, sometimes from others, sometimes from themselves. You will never rise above the standards you set. Goals are about what you want. Standards are about what you're willing to no longer accept. And that's where transformation happens, when you raise your standards so high that the old version of you can't survive in the same space. Think about it. Every breakthrough you've ever had in your life came when you decided, I will not live like this anymore. That's when you drew the line, not when you made a wish or a plan, but when you changed what you were willing to tolerate. Because when you raise your standards, your identity shifts. You stop asking, what do I have to do? And you start asking, who do I have to become? People love setting goals because goals feel exciting. They sound inspiring. They give you a short burst of energy. But goals without elevated standards are like building a skyscraper on sand. You can't sustain it if your standards say, I can skip my morning routine, or I'll try again next week. Your goals will collapse under the weight of your habits. So this week you've given yourself to become unrecognizable. You must raise your standards in every area of life, your energy, your focus, your self-talk, your effort, your environment. When you raise your standards, life starts responding differently. You attract different people, different opportunities, different outcomes, because your energy communicates your expectations before your words do. People feel it. The world feels it. And suddenly, what used to be acceptable becomes unbearable. You can't go back to your old patterns because your soul outgrew them. Here's the truth. You don't get your goals. You get your standards. If your standard is to show up even when you don't feel like it, you'll win. If your standard is to keep your word to yourself, your confidence will skyrocket. If your standard is to live with discipline, you'll never have to chase motivation again. The greatest freedom comes when your new standards become non-negotiable. You want to become unrecognizable in a week. Then for the next 7 days, make everything about your standards. How do you wake up? How do you move? How do you talk to yourself? How do you respond when life tests you? Don't aim to be perfect. Aim to demand more from yourself than you did yesterday. You'll notice something incredible happen. The more you hold yourself to a higher standard, the less resistance you feel, because your brain stops arguing with your potential and starts aligning with it. When you walk into a room with higher standards, you stand differently, you speak differently, you radiate certainty, and that energy pulls you into momentum. People around you might not understand it. They might say, you've changed, and you'll smile because that's the point. You're not here to stay the same. You're here to evolve so powerfully that your past self wouldn't even recognize you. The only reason people stay stuck is that their standards are still tied to their comfort zone. But growth and comfort never coexist. You want to see what you're capable of. Then make discomfort your new standard. Make discipline your baseline. Make excellence your default. Stop negotiating with mediocrity. When you stop accepting less, you naturally do more, give more, become more. Not because you're trying harder, but because you've raised the floor of what's acceptable. I'm not saying it's easy. The moment you raise your standards, life will test you. It'll throw distractions, doubts, and delays your way to see if you really mean it. But that's the moment you stand taller. You remind yourself, this is who I am now. Because every time you stick to your higher standard, even when it's inconvenient, you're carving a new identity into your nervous system. This isn't about forcing change, it's about embodying it. When your standards rise, your behavior automatically follows. You won't have to fake confidence, discipline, or strength. You'll live from it. Because deep down, you'll know that the old you would have quit and the new you doesn't. That's the power of standards. They don't just guide your actions, they redefine your identity. So for the next 7 days, stop asking what you want to achieve. Ask instead, what will I no longer tolerate? Because the moment you raise your standards, your old life becomes too small for you to live in. And that's when you finally become unrecognizable. If you want to become unrecognizable in a week, you must take command of the one thing that determines how you show up every single day, your morning. The way you begin your day is the foundation of your identity. Most people drift through their mornings on autopilot. They wake up reacting, reaching for their phones, scrolling through other people's lives before they've even opened their own. They give away their focus, their energy, their direction before they've even decided who they want to be that day. You cannot build a powerful life with a powerless start. If you want to transform in 7 days, your mornings must become sacred, non-negotiable time to prime your mind, body, and spirit for the person you're becoming. You don't need a perfect morning routine. You need an intentional one. You need rituals that pull you into a state of power, not comfort, because your morning determines your momentum. The energy you create in those first moments after waking becomes the energy that carries through the next 16 hours. And if you start your day in chaos, you'll attract more chaos. But if you start it with clarity and purpose, you'll notice how everything begins to align. Every single person has a morning pattern that either builds them or breaks them. The difference between those who grow and those who stay stuck isn't intelligence or luck. It's discipline. It's the ability to say, I lead my morning. My morning doesn't lead me. The most successful people don't wait to feel motivated to move. They move first, and the energy follows. Because motion creates emotion. The fastest way to shift your state is to move your body. When you wake up, don't drag yourself into the day, explode into it. Stand tall, breathe deep, shake off the sleep, shake off yesterday. Feel the energy come alive in your body. Your physiology is the remote control to your emotional state. You can't feel powerful standing in a weak posture. Breathing shallow, staring down at the floor. You've got to lift your head, expand your chest, breathe like someone who owns their day. The moment you do that, your brain releases chemicals that shift how you think and feel. You become alert, focused, and ready. Then take control of your mind. The world will bombard you with noise the moment you check your phone. Notifications, emails, opinions, distractions, all designed to hijack your focus. So before you let the outside world in, condition your inner world first. Spend a few minutes feeding your mind with something that reminds you who you are and what you're here to do. Speak your vision out loud. Feel gratitude, not as a thought, but as a state. Gratitude destroys fear. It recenters you in abundance and possibility. Some people say they don't have time for this. The truth is, they just haven't decided it matters. Because you'll always find time for what's essential. You can change your life in 7 days if you decide your morning matters more than your comfort. If you need to wake up an hour earlier, do it. That's not punishment, that's power. Those quiet hours before the world wakes up are where you build the identity of the unrecognizable you. In that space, you set the tone for everything. Ask yourself, who am I choosing to be today? Don't wait for circumstances to define your mood. Define it yourself. Visualize your goals, not as distant dreams, but as realities you're already living. Feel them in your body. Speak them as truth, because your mind doesn't know the difference between imagination and reality. It simply follows what you focus on with emotion. Then get your body moving. I don't care if it's running, stretching, dancing, or jumping in place, just move. Movement builds momentum, and momentum builds confidence. When your body is alive, your mind can't stay stuck in fear or doubt. You create chemistry in your body that says, I'm awake, I'm ready, I'm unstoppable. Your morning is your daily vote for the person you're becoming. If you spend those first hours focused, intentional, and grateful, you will not drift through life reacting to every problem. You'll lead your day with purpose and certainty. You'll notice your emotions become steadier, your energy sharper, your focus stronger. You'll start to trust yourself again because every morning becomes proof that you are no longer the person you were. This isn't about doing something fancy or complicated. It's about ownership. You either own your morning or it owns you. The rest of the world begins its day by reacting to the noise. You begin by creating direction. And when you repeat that for 7 days straight, you will not recognize the person you see in the mirror because you'll have stepped into a new identity, one that begins each day with power, purpose, and control. The morning isn't just the start of your day, it's the start of your transformation. And when you master it, everything else falls into place. If you want to become unrecognizable in a week, you have to start feeding your mind the future. Most people want to change their life while continuing to consume the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same conversations that built the person they're trying to leave behind. They wonder why transformation feels slow, why motivation fades, why the old patterns keep creeping back. It's because their mind is still being fed by their past. You can't create a new identity with old information. You can't become your next level while thinking like your last one. Your mind is a garden. Whatever you feed it grows. If you plant seeds of doubt, fear, and limitation, don't be surprised when that's what shows up in your results. But if you feed it vision, certainty, and strength, your actions will begin to reflect that. The most powerful transformations happen not when you try harder, but when you start thinking differently. And thinking differently begins with what you allow into your mind every single day. For the next 7 days, you've got to be ruthless about what you consume. Guard your attention like your life depends on it, because it does. What you watch, what you read, what you listen to, who you talk to, all of it shapes your emotional and mental environment. If you're feeding your mind negativity, comparison, drama, and fear, how can you expect to feel empowered? You can't rise while you're consuming things that keep you small. Most people don't realize how much their environment programs them. Every message, every sound, every conversation is either reinforcing your old identity or building your new one. You've got to decide which it will be. You have to become intentional about what you let in. If your goal is to become unrecognizable, then your focus must be consumed by what that future version of you thinks, feels, and believes. Listen to things that expand you. Read ideas that stretch your perspective. Surround yourself with energy that makes you think bigger, act bolder, and expect more from yourself. The future you doesn't wake up scrolling through distractions. The future you feeds their mind with inspiration, direction, and vision. The future you doesn't entertain conversations that drain energy. They engage in ones that elevate it. Every moment you're either feeding your future or feeding your past. And if you truly want to become unrecognizable, you've got to starve your past of attention and overfeed your future until it becomes your new normal. You know what most people do? They say they want change, but they keep returning to the same content, the same people, the same environments that validate their excuses. They say they want growth, but they keep listening to voices that make them doubt. They keep tuning into noise that distracts rather than directs. You cannot expand while staying loyal to what limits you. You must choose a new mental diet, one that fuels your vision, not your fear. Start your day with something that pulls you forward. Read words that make you think. Listen to ideas that shake your comfort zone. Watch something that reminds you of who you're capable of becoming. Because repetition is how your subconscious learns. The more often you feed your mind the future, the faster it starts to believe it's already yours. And once your mind believes it, your behavior naturally aligns. This isn't about pretending everything's perfect. It's about training your focus. Whatever you focus on, you feel. And whatever you feel consistently, you become. If you keep focusing on what's missing, you'll live in lack. But if you focus on where you're going, you'll live in movement. Your focus is your fuel. It can either chain you to the past or catapult you into your next level. So every time an old thought creeps in, that voice that says, you've tried before, it didn't work, or you're not ready, or you're not that kind of person, don't argue with it. Replace it. Speak the truth of your future louder than the lies of your past. That's how you rewire your mind. You overwrite the old programming by feeding it something stronger, something aligned, something alive. Over time, your brain starts building new neural pathways. You begin to crave what's empowering instead of what's easy. You begin to think, speak, and act from a place of power rather than pain. You start to notice how differently you carry yourself, how your energy feels lighter, sharper, more magnetic. That's when you know the shift is real. Because when you change what you feed your mind, you change what your mind feeds back to you. If you want to become unrecognizable in 7 days, stop letting your attention be hijacked by what doesn't serve your vision. Treat your focus like gold. Choose every word, every thought, every piece of input intentionally. Because the future you are trying to create is waiting to be fed. And the moment you start nourishing it, it will start to grow so fast the world won't recognize who you've become. If you want to transform in a week, you must move with intensity. Because emotion creates motion, and motion creates transformation. Most people try to think their way into change. They sit around analyzing, overthinking, waiting for the perfect moment to feel ready. But transformation doesn't happen in your head, it happens in your body first. The fastest way to shift your life is to shift your state. When you change your energy, your focus changes, your decisions change, your identity changes. Energy is everything. The way you move, breathe, speak, it's all energy. You can't step into a powerful life with low energy. You can't expect to feel unstoppable while carrying the posture, the breathing pattern, and the sluggishness of the old you. If you want to become unrecognizable, you must generate energy deliberately, not wait for it to appear. The most successful people in the world aren't the ones who wake up feeling amazing every day. They're the ones who create their energy regardless of how they feel. They move first and the emotion follows. When you move your body with purpose, when you take command of your physiology, your mind can't help but follow. Have you ever noticed that it's impossible to feel depressed when you're standing tall, breathing deeply, moving with certainty? Your body sends signals to your brain that say, I'm alive, I'm in control, I'm powerful. That's why movement is the key to momentum. The energy you generate physically becomes the foundation for everything you create mentally and emotionally. The problem is most people live life like they're sleepwalking. They're dragging themselves through the day with no fire, no intensity, no emotion. They're reacting instead of creating. But your emotions are fuel. They're the spark that turns potential into power. You can't build a new identity while living in old emotions. You can't become unrecognizable if your emotional state is identical to the person you've always been. You must feel different to act different, and you must act different to feel different. So how do you do that? You start with your body. Stand up right now, shoulders back, head high, deep breath in. Feel that expansion in your chest, that life rushing into your lungs. That's not just oxygen. That's your new identity waking up. That's your energy telling your brain it's time to rise. Now imagine if you started every single day like that, with energy, with movement, with certainty, instead of rolling out of bed reacting to the world. You'd start living like a creator, not a responder. You see, emotion is just energy in motion. It's not something that happens to you, it's something you generate. You can create passion, excitement, confidence on command, not by thinking about it, but by embodying it. Jump up and down, scream your goals out loud, move like the person you want to become. At first, it'll feel unnatural because you're breaking the patterns of the old you. But keep doing it and your nervous system begins to adapt. It starts to associate that energy with your new identity. You become someone who doesn't wait to feel good. You create it. When you live in a state of high energy, everything changes. Your focus sharpens. Your confidence rises. You begin to see opportunities where you used to see obstacles. You make decisions faster because you're not stuck in hesitation. Your energy propels you forward. People around you can feel it. They might not understand it, but they'll feel drawn to it. Because intensity is magnetic. The person who moves with conviction naturally becomes a leader, even without trying. You can't fake intensity. It has to come from a place of total commitment. This isn't about hype. It's about harnessing the energy that's already inside you. Every emotion you need, strength, passion, drive, is already within you. You just have to activate it. And once you learn to access that energy on command, you'll never again be at the mercy of your moods or circumstances. You'll be in control of your state, and your state controls your destiny. Over the next 7 days, I want you to practice this. Every time you feel tired, frustrated, or distracted, change your body first. Don't sit and think about how to fix it. Move. Stand up, breathe deep, change your posture, change your focus. Within seconds, you'll feel the shift. That's not magic. That's the biology of transformation. Your body is the gateway to your potential. Remember, low energy produces low results. High energy produces high results. You can't create a legendary life with a tired spirit, so make energy your daily discipline. Fuel it with movement, protect it with focus, and express it with emotion. Because when you move with intensity, you don't just change how you feel, you change who you are. And when you start living with that kind of energy every single day, the world won't just see a different you. They'll see a version of you they can't even recognize. Don't wait until you see the results to start acting like the person who deserves them. Act like the future you now. Most people are waiting for permission to change. They're waiting for the promotion, the recognition, the breakthrough, the moment when everything finally feels right. But that moment never comes because identity doesn't wait for results, it creates them. The truth is, you will never feel ready to become your next level. You have to become before you believe. You have to act before you see. Every transformation begins with an identity shift. You can change your habits, your environment, your strategy, but if your identity stays the same, the results won't stick. You can't act like the old version of yourself and expect a new life to appear. So if you want to become unrecognizable in 1 week, stop trying to build new results from the same mindset. Step into the identity of the person who already has what you want. Speak like them, move like them, think like them, decide like them. Because when you consistently act from that energy, your brain starts to catch up. It begins to wire your thoughts, your emotions, your decisions around that new identity. Let me ask you something. How would the future version of you wake up in the morning? How would they move, speak, carry themselves? How would they handle stress? How would they treat people? How would they respond to challenges? Every time you choose to act like that person, even in small ways, you're conditioning your nervous system to live from that state. And when your actions align with your vision, reality follows. You see, the problem isn't that people can't change, it's that they keep waiting for proof before they commit. They say, once I start seeing results, I'll believe in myself. But belief doesn't come after proof, it comes before. The identity shift is what creates the results. It's not, I'll be confident once I succeed. It's, I'll succeed because I've decided to live with confidence now. That's how the cycle reverses. You start operating from your future, not your past. When you truly step into your future identity, everything you do begins to feel different. You stop negotiating with excuses. You stop explaining your limitations. You stop lowering your standards to make others comfortable. You start carrying yourself with certainty, not arrogance, but certainty. The kind that says, this is who I am now. And that energy changes how people see you. Opportunities start aligning. Conversations shift. People treat you differently because you're broadcasting a different frequency. But here's the key. You can't fake it. You can't pretend to be confident while still speaking like a victim. You can't act powerful while thinking powerless thoughts. You've got to embody it fully. When you walk, walk with intent. When you speak, speak with conviction. When you work, give it everything. When you decide, decide fast. The future version of you doesn't hesitate. They trust themselves. And every time you hesitate, you're reinforcing the old you. Every time you move boldly, you're reinforcing the new one. This isn't about arrogance or pretending to be something you're not. It's about aligning your behavior with your potential, because that future version of you, the one who's confident, disciplined, and fulfilled, isn't somewhere out there waiting for years to pass. They already exist inside you. They're buried under hesitation, self-doubt, and old stories that say, maybe later. But the moment you start acting like that person, you wake them up. Every small action matters. When you choose to eat differently, to show up earlier, to speak with more certainty, to give more effort, you're building evidence for your new identity. That evidence compounds. After a few days, you start noticing shifts. Your posture changes, your energy rises, your thoughts sharpen. The world doesn't recognize it right away, but you do. And that's where the transformation begins, from within. The reason this works so fast is because your brain is always looking for consistency between what you do and who you believe you are. When you repeatedly act as your future self, your brain says, this must be who we are now. It starts to rewire your beliefs, your habits, your self-talk. That's why the transformation accelerates when you stop waiting and start becoming. Over the next 7 days, I want you to act like your future self is already here. If you want to be fit, move like someone who values strength. If you want success, think and decide like a leader. If you want confidence, speak like someone who already owns their worth. Don't wait for life to reward you before you step into that energy. Reward yourself first by living it now, because the fastest way to become unrecognizable is to live as if your transformation has already happened. When you do that, your actions, your energy, and your environment will rearrange themselves to match your new identity. And one day soon, you'll look back and realize the person you used to be doesn't even exist anymore.